Remember, do you do like the Wordles and those puzzles too? Yeah. Too easy. Have you done Octordle? Yes. Where you're doing 8 Wordles at once? You don't think that's fun?
How to make all those white juice today?
All right. So I guess we'll record class for all the people that are stuck in the line in the front. But will you turn to the end of last time's notes? We just need to cover the 4th strategy. Okay, which remember we kind of made it to here and then just took a little break. Okay, so we're here. Okay?
It's too early.
No, it's just the right time. All right. So last time, just real quick, did y'all fill in the first page, the different strategies? Yeah. Okay. So the last strategy is L'Hopital's rule. This is like a little trick that can do any of the ones that you learned last class, plus it can work more questions than that. So L'Hopital is the guy who, La Hospital, is the guy who like discovered this. That's why it has that name. If you have a limit of F over G, so you would only use this for division. Okay, and the limit for F and G both give you 0. That means you get 0 over 0. And then you should have learned last time that means you have to do more to get an answer to the limit, right? Okay, what L'Hopital discovered is that you can redo the limit using the derivatives of the top and the bottom. Now, notice you're not doing quotient rule for L'Hopital's rule. F, the top, goes to F prime. G goes to G prime, and then you just try the limit again. So let me show you what I mean. Take a look at number 18. Okay, but this only works if it's a 0 over 0. So take a look at 18. X is approaching 2. So my first method would be just to plug in a 2, right? So I get 2 cubed minus 8 over 2 minus 2. But 2 cubed is what? 8 minus 8 gives me 0, and 2 minus 2 gives me, that tells me that I need to do more. Now, if you remember the factoring formula for difference of perfect cubes, there is one, but probably you don't. Okay, then factor cancel wouldn't work here. It does work, but you have to remember that formula. However, if you do L'Hopital's rule, put L apostrophe H, you're going to take the derivative of the top and the bottom and then just try the limit again. So on top, what's the derivative of x cubed minus 8? Perfect. What happens to the 8? Good. On bottom, it's an x minus 2. What's the derivative? And then you just retry the limit as x approaches 2. So now 3x squared would be 3 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so L'Hopital's rule is a different way to solve 0 over zeros. Okay, let's try number 19 right next to it. If I plug in 0, I would have cosine of 0 minus 1 over 6 times 0. Cosine of 0 is what? 1, good. So that would make it 1 minus 1, which is a 0 on top. And then 6 times 0 is 0. So I see that I have, that's called the indeterminate form. Okay, if you want to box that up here. that means that you have to do more. So we're going to retry the limit by L'Hopital's rule. Okay, by taking the derivative of the top and the bottom and then just plugging in again. Cosine x minus 1, what's the derivative? Negative sine x. 1 goes away. Okay, on the bottom, 6x would just go to a. And then you're going to retry the LIM as x approach 0. What is the sine of 0 when I plug that in? 0, and 0 divided by 6 is 0. Okay. Well, okay, the minus 1 when you take the derivative, since it's a constant, would drop off. Okay, let's go down to number 20. Okay, plug in your x approach 0. What would you get? So you'd have e to the 0 minus 1 over 2 times 0. But e to the 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, 2 times 0 is 0, so you get 0 over 0. Okay, then we're going to try L'Hopital's rule. What is the derivative of the top? E to the x. Where does the 1 go? Okay, constant goes away. Okay, and then 2x on bottom. 2, and then retry the limit as x goes to 0. E to the 0 on top becomes a what? 1, so it'd be 1 over 2. All right, let's take a look at number 21. X approach 0, we're plugging that in. When the 0 goes into the sine 5x, it's sine 5 times 0, but that's going to still just be sine 0, because you have to times the 5 and the 0 together first, then do your hand trick. So 5 times 0 is 0. 0 is my pinky. How many fingers below my pinky? So it's going to be 0. Okay, then on bottom, I have a 3 times 0, which is also 0. So we know that means do more. Okay, when you take the derivative with L'Hopital's rule, let's do the bottom first because it's easier. What's the derivative of 3x? 3. What rule is the derivative of sine 5x going to need? Chain rule. Very good, because it's not just sine x, it's sine of 5x, right? So remember, that means that we're going to have to do chain rule. Okay, so I'm just going to put chain around only the top. Okay, and you'll see this happen a little bit on those last questions of your homework from last time. So the outside layer is sine. What's the derivative of sine? Cosine. Remember, the 5x stays the same. But then I go in a layer. What's the derivative of 5x? Times 5. Very good. Okay, that's your chain rule part. And then you still retry the limit. Okay, but part of L'Hopital's rule could involve chain. Hi, Alex. We're finishing last time's notes. I know the metal detectors, you're fine. Okay, so we're plugging in a 0. So I'd have the cosine of 5 times 0. Then I'm going to multiply that by 5 over 3. 5 times 0 is 0. What's the cosine of 0? 1. 1 times 5 is 5, which means my final answer is 5/3. Overall, we get an idea here? All right, go ahead and turn to the back side, please. All right, next one we're going to work is 25. Go ahead and plug in your x approach for me. So 25, what is my x approaching? What number? 4, so I'll just take the 4 and plug it in. So I'd have ln 4 minus ln 4 over 4 minus 4. Okay, and then when I see that comes out to 0 over 0, that means that any of my methods could work. Okay, but you can't use conjugates. You can't use factor cancel. So L'Hopital's rule is really your only option for this question. So you would take the derivative of the top, the derivative of the bottom, and then retry the limit. Now for the top, do we remember the derivative of ln x?
E. No.
1 over x. Okay, what would the derivative be of ln 4? Huh? No.
4 over.
No.
Good morning.
What type of number is ln 4? Is it a constant?
That is attending the University of Texas at Austin.
Yes, because it doesn't have an x, right? So what's the derivative of a constant? 0. So remember that if it doesn't have an x, that's a constant. Just like e to the 4, that would be a constant that would also go to 0. So if it doesn't have an x, then it's not a function. You're just taking the derivative of a constant, which would then go to 0. Okay, on the bottom, I have an x minus 4. Derivative would just be 1, and then you'd retry the limit. So x is approaching 4. I'd have 1/4 divide by 1, which is just a 4th. Okay, remember, anything divided by 1 just stays the same. Get the idea? All right, let's go down to the tables. So go down to number 27. You have a lot of questions like this on your homework. So let's do 27 first. Okay, you have a limit. X is approaching 2. So we're going to take that 2 and we're going to plug it in. So I'm going to have 5 times 2 minus 10 over 2f of 2. Okay, let's do the top first. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. Okay, on the bottom, I need to find f of 2, and I'm going to use the chart for that. What is f of 2? Okay, it is a 0. So I go to my 2 in my x column, and then go across to my regular f. I see that that is a 0. And 2 times 0 is 0. That tells me to do 1. Okay, from there, we know we're going to do L'Hopital's rule. What will the derivative of the top be? 5. Just a 5. Great. Okay, on the bottom, what is the derivative of f of x? F prime, and you're just going to keep the 2 in the front. Now, why do I not need product rule? Remember that if your f of x was times by something that had its own x, that's where you have to do product rule because it's a function times another function. But if it's just a 2 in front, you just take the derivative and keep the 2 in front. Just like if it was a 2 sine, it'd go to 2 cosine, right? Okay, and then we're going to retry that limit again. So x is approaching 2. My 5 is going to stay the same. But now I'm dividing by 2 f prime of 2. And then I'll pull that number from my chart. So f prime of 2 would be a 10. Then that'd be 5 over 2 times 10, which is 20. 5 over 20 would go to a 4th. Okay? Very good. All right, take a look at the next one. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is plug in my x approach 2. So I'd have 3 times 2 minus 6 over f of 2 times 2 minus 4 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. But then remember, the bottom has to come out to 0 for L'Hopital's rule to be true. So if I'm looking at my f of 2x, 2 times 2 is what in here? Then this is really f of 4 minus 8. And then I would pull f of 4 out of the chart. What is f of 4? 8. And then 8 minus 8 is 0 over 0. So that tells me we have to do more. We're going to take the derivative. Okay, what will the derivative be of the top? Just a 3. Okay, on the bottom, what rule are you going to need to take the derivative of the f of 2x part? Chain rule. Because it's not just f of x, it's f of 2x, right? So my f is going to go to what? F prime of 2x. And then I go in a layer. What's the derivative of 2x? Times 2. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, then the minus 4x. So What's the derivative of that? -4. Okay, then retry your limit.
So they're not worrying about.
So on top, you're gonna just keep the 3. Okay, on bottom, I have an f prime of 2x, but if I plug a 2 into the 2x, what am I really looking for f prime at? 4, and then I'm gonna double it, and then -4. So my 2 times 2x becomes a 4, f prime of 4, look in your chart, what number is that? 9. So this goes to a 9 times 2, which is 18. 18 take away 4 gives me 14. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. What I'm going to have you do, since we're still kind of missing a lot of people, we're not totally done with notes, but I'm going to let you work on last time's homework. I want to do one together. So can you pull out last time's homework on your Chromebooks, please? And then it's one of them that has an E in it that I'm going to have to find.
I didn't hear like 9. I can count 5. No, that walked around the shortest line of the fairway.
No.
Yeah.
I just thought it was my. No, I put it in because I understand like you're.
All right, the question we're going to do from last time is third from the bottom. Do you want to send on paper?
It starts like that.
Third from the bottom.
Chose it like a
Yeah, we get it.
What?
Oh,
Wait, Trevor, do you know about the
Oh
water
no! You just looked like a good girl. They don't think they had to check it. Paper? You want paper? You can probably reach to this one.
Oh, dude, you play part of my reach.
Y'all want paper? Look, now you know Ashton's schedule from last year.
Yay.
What a treat.
What is that? Oh, it's
It's just scratch paper. Yeah. You want paper?
I want to see it.
Third from the bottom. Third from the bottom.
Oh, action hall.
You're good? Okay. I'm going
I have those. Same shit.
You guys want to start paper
Like,
later?
you know about shopping on the road. Almost hospital. Where's the house? Where's the house? Where are you? Hospital. That's what we thought. But it's like kind of a meatball.
Ooh, sure.
I'm actually the assistant teacher.
Yes, you What is with you and these like
Oh, 100%. I don't know about that. Okay, you see
Whoa, whoa, who said the F word? I'm recording over here, Gabe.
You know why I said that?
Why did you say it? Huh?
Thomas.
Thomas.
I like this.
Oh yeah, you do. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I'm a test here. Look, she's too old for you. Okay?
You're right.
You're just a boy. You're just a little
I'm
boy.
35.
All right. This is third from the bottom.
35. Yeah.
What are y'all talking
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, last example we'll do for a little bit and then I'll give you some time to work. So we're plugging in 0. What are we gonna get when we put a 0 into the top? It'd be 3e to the negative 2 times 0 minus 3. This is third from the bottom. Okay, then 2 times 0 up top is what? And then e to the 0 is what? 1. So really, that's 3 times 1 minus 3, which is 3 minus 3, which is 0. Okay, on the bottom, we're plugging in a 0 again. 4 times 0 plus 7 times 0 squared is going to be 0. Now, for this section, they're not all 0 over 0. So you really do have to do that first, because if you try to do L'Hopital's rule on a non-0 over 0, it doesn't work. Okay? So we're ready to take the derivative. Can you do the derivative of the bottom first? What would it be?
4 plus 14.
Okay, so it'd be 4 plus 14x, and you can change the order, that's fine. Okay, but the 7x squared would go to a 14x, and then the 4x would go to a 4. For the top, you need chain rule. Okay, and a lot of people in my B-Day class didn't remember how to do it with E. So if you're doing an E, the outside layer is the E, the inside layer is the minus 2x. So what's the derivative of e to the negative 2x?
E to the negative 2x.
E to the negative 2x again, but then you have to times by the derivative of the middle layer, which is a negative 2x. What's the derivative of that? Negative 2. Now, what happens to the minus 3? Goes away because it's a constant. Okay, before you plug in, typically we would multiply this 3 and this negative 2 together. So what would that coefficient be now? Negative 6e to the negative 2x over 4 plus 14x. Okay? So chain rule on e, you keep the e to the x part exactly the same, and then when you go in a layer, negative 2x gives you an extra negative 2, which combines with the 3 to be a 6. Then from there, you're just plugging in 0. So LIM, x approach 0, and then you should be able to get your answer from there. Okay? So e to the 0 would be what on top?
1, 1.
Times negative 6 is, okay, on bottom, 4 plus 14 times 0 would be 4, then reduce it 3 halves. Yep. All right, so what I want you to do right now is just finish those last few questions off last time's homework. Ask me if you need help.
Yeah, but we could only do 5 questions last time. Yeah, we have to do the entire